So I've been researching whiskey, and Ireland invented whiskey. This is Powers since 1791. This is made, not like Jameson, most kinds made nowadays. This is called pot still, the Irish single pot still. So this is the original way Irish whiskey was made before this crazy invention happened that made it a lot more efficient, that the Scottish adopted, and whiskey in Ireland kind of went down a little bit, but it's becoming popular again, and this is the old original way. Look at that color. Let me give it a try. Whoa, wow, that is nice. Original style Irish whiskey. Woo! Cheers. So, on more of the history of whiskey. It's fascinating. Monks came up with it when they were making concoctions to make perfumes almost 1,000 years ago in Ireland, actually. And one day they tried drinking for some reason, something that they went, ooh, that makes you feel kind of funny. That's how the distillation process was invented, from perfume making on accident. So, pot still, single pot still, is the old original Irish way, going back to the 1600s, I believe, maybe even earlier, 1400s. You get a big copper pot where you distill all the liquor, turn it into a gas, and it comes out into a liquid. It's a magical process from the grains. This is the original way. It's hard to find now. So that's almost the most important part. Some people triple distill, where they put it through these giant containers 3 times. Some people single distill, like single pot. It's different processes to do it also, but when it comes out, it's not like this. It's clear, like water, and strong too, man. Like 90% at the tops of alcohol, which is too much. So they water it down a little bit, put the exact specifics, and most importantly is the aging process of whiskey. So they usually use American oak, and some different woods from France and Spain. And whiskey makers, they usually use pre-used sherry or French wine or Spanish wine barrels. And they let it sit for usually a minimum of 3 years. So most Irish whiskeys you get nowadays is half pot still, single pot still, half grain whiskey. And they mix it together. It's like a blend. Triple distilled, and it's a little bit cheaper, easier to find all over America. Everybody knows Jameson, Bushmills. That's from Northern Ireland, actually, but it's Irish. This is the original way whiskey was meant to be. But Scotch, you gotta give it to the Scots. They made an interesting batch. Americans too with their bourbon. Canadians too, man. I like that too. But it's an interesting world of whiskey, and this is the pure kind in Ireland, which is single pot still. It's one of the old distillers. Sometimes they use bourbon barrels too, from America. So that's what gives it this flavor, this color, and flavor. So as the bourbon sits, Irish whiskey, Scotch whiskey, this kind, there's a lot of little differences how they make all these, but the aging process is most important to get this color in. So it soaks up the wood, gives it this distinct flavor, and sometimes you let it sit 10 years. 15 years, 50 years, and something happens inside the barrel called the angel share. Because over time, a little bit of whiskey evaporates outside of the wood. And depending on how old it is, you could lose a lot, man. That's why older bottles are so expensive. It takes a long time. It's a process. All right, it's night in Ireland now. Let me reiterate something. Whiskey. So, I know a little bit more than it seemed. I was a little not clear about how it's made. So it's a bunch of barley grown in the fields, wheat. And they take it from the fields, roast it sometimes, but sometimes they don't roast it. And they mash it up, turn it into this stuff, heat it up in a big cauldron, and make this wort, kind of like a beer. They add the yeast to it, and it does its magic, and all the science happens. That's really amazing in these big old containers. Then they take that and heat it up to a certain temperature, distill it in these pot stills, turns into a gas, comes out as liquid whiskey. Then they store it. All right, one huge thing while traveling that I much prefer is a clean water source from the tap. It's huge, man. I can't stand having to buy plastic and going to these things. Ireland, you have some good water. Stay hydrated, man. Huge thing for me. Huge. It's big time. All right, hockey, Irish fish. This is the best fried fish I've ever had. This is leftovers from yesterday. I didn't make a video yesterday when that's the dish, but made a little sandwich of it today. The flakiness. Oh, so good. Thank you. Thank you. Make it fancy.
No, you have to do the dance.
Make it fancy.
Tag her in that.
Your fry mix is something. And this fish is so flaky. White fish. Oh, man. So good. Oh!